A shocking discovery.
He's just committed a brutal murder.
The hunt for a killer.
The priority would be to locate, trace and interview him.
We don't want somebody who's suspected of committing a murder running around.
The motive, a mystery.
Financial motivation is huge, and it could have been that was the plan from the outset.
Now, by rewinding the events leading up to the murder, police can retrace the footsteps of the killer before and after committing the most heinous of crimes.
He's clearly a psychopath, where he has no regard for anybody else and he has no moral compass.
And bring justice to the family.
It was jaw-dropping. He destroyed everything for her family.
This is the story of what the killer did next.
I'm sat on a bus heading for Lima. It's 90 minutes of noise, random potholes, and insufferable heat. I'm going through this one more time before I go home. I'm literally leaving paradise to face my destiny in England.
This was one of the most shocking cases that I've covered, simply because of the dynamic of what happened between a beautifully happy couple who had met online and were living a perfect dream of young love, and then that all turns into a nightmare.
In March 2012, Nottinghamshire police receive a missing person report.
Well, a man called Nottinghamshire Police and he was concerned for the welfare of his friend, Debbie Starbuck. He'd not heard from her since she was married nearly 2 years previously, and it was unusual for him not to have heard from her.
Debbie's sister also contacted the police around that time because she had become extremely concerned when Debbie contacted her by email and she didn't wish her a happy birthday, which was the next day, and that was something that she wouldn't have forgotten.
2 years previously, 44-year-old Debbie married Jamie Starbuck after the pair met online.
They got married within 9 months of meeting at West Bridgford Registry Office. Quite a whirlwind romance.
While the wedding was a small affair, it was clear to their neighbours that they were very much in love.
They had the reception in the back garden. They had a gazebo in the corner with about 10 people, a barbecue, drinks, and there was just laughing and joking for about 2 hours.
The plan after the wedding was that they were going to travel together. They both loved travelling.
Debbie planned that they should go all around the world, visiting Europe, America, South America, Australia, Africa, and all the islands of the Caribbean. She really planned the holiday of a lifetime.
There were regular reports back to the family on email and postcards, and just boasting about what a wonderful trip they were having, and just trying to get across the fact that they were really enjoying themselves in that time, and seeing some of the most breathtaking views, locations. Jamie Starbuck was an avid blogger, and telephone communications and internet wasn't great in some countries, so he wrote his experience down in minute detail.
Travelling in India is like being punched in the head 300 times a day. It's the most beautiful, superbly interesting, massively annoying, incredibly irritating, tremendously awesome place you could ever go. Everything is a challenge, but it's also damn enjoyable.
But 2 years into their honeymoon, when concerns are raised to police, some initial checks are carried out.
It would have almost certainly been categorised low risk on the information provided. For all intents and purposes, Debbie was a newlywed. She was travelling the world with a new husband.
The police had a very difficult job. They were both adults. They had no responsibilities in the UK. They were free to live their lives as they felt like.
On the back of the concerns, Nottinghamshire Police sent an email to the email address which had been communicating with all of Debbie's friends and family, and they asked Debbie to go to the nearest British embassy.
Not having had a response from Debbie, or in terms of email or producing herself at an embassy, the police made some further checks on her finances.
Debbie had inherited £150,000 from her late mother's estate some years before she met Jamie Starbuck.
And on checking her bank accounts, they saw that the significant amount of money that she had actually been transferred into her husband's account.
The fact that he had transferred money from her account to his own account was not of the greatest concern, because that's what married couples do.
Despite there being a potentially innocent explanation, police take a closer look into Jamie's financial affairs.
They found that the money was being spent on travel and hotels and hostels. It was spent on that holiday across 70 countries.
Well, the police then were able, through using the internet, to trace everywhere that the couple had been in the 30 months they'd been touring the world. They established through airline bookings that various countries had been visited.
With financial checks matching the couple's travels, police need to decide their next move.
Given the lack of contact with her friend, her sister, the omission of the birthday congratulations, her non-responsiveness to the emails from the police, which is significant, and also not responding to the request to go to the embassy, and coupled with the fact that £75,000, a significant amount of money, has transferred from her account to her partner's account, her husband, that for me would raise red flags.
The police then discovered something which had a fundamental effect on the investigation of the case.
One of the key lines of inquiry for the investigation team was with the passport office to check the passports of both Jamie and Debbie Starbuck, both for their usage and frequency of usage across Europe and the wider world. Checks with the passport office revealed that not only had Debbie's passport expired, but it had expired prior to the wedding of Jamie and Debbie Starbuck.
It became apparent that Debbie had never left the country in the first place.
I'm travelling so you don't have to. Originally from the UK, I've no intention of going home. Ever. I'd highly recommend the lifestyle, and if you want to come join with, feel free.
Police investigating the whereabouts of Debbie Starbuck on her extended honeymoon have made a shocking discovery.
By checking for passport records, it was possible to determine that the passport was out of date and therefore couldn't have been used to travel from country to country, which therefore escalated the case.
As an investigator, this would mean and take on a whole different level of significance. There could be no other explanation other than Debbie Starbuck never left the UK, and that Jamie, having transferred all the funds from Debbie's account to his own, had departed the UK and travelled the world alone.
It was a massive discovery. It raised the questions on what on earth had been going on for all that time. Who was sending the emails on her behalf to her family and friends?
The big question was, where was Debbie Starbuck?
Officers now ramp up their missing person investigation.
One of the key actions, one of the priority actions, would be to create a profile of both Debbie and Jamie Starbuck.
Debbie was a woman in her 40s. She was a self-employed proofreader, and importantly in this case, she'd received an inheritance following the sad death of her mother.
She was well loved and had a circle of friends, not a large circle of friends, that she knew a lot of people. She was described as being loyal, friendly, someone who was trusting of other individuals.
Jamie was in his 30s. He'd had a few different jobs in the past, including being a cleaner and a photographer.
They met online and they had a whirlwind romance. They moved in together very quickly.
They married at the West Bridgeford Register Office and then went to live in a house which he rented in Old Baseford.
Police discover Debbie has not been seen since the 27th of April, a week after her wedding.
One of the first things that you would do would be to search their previous house. Now it would be 2 years since they actually lived there, but there would be definitely inquiries there, searches there, forensic searches there, and house-to-house inquiries with neighbours to find out if there was anything significant that was seen or heard by them.
You'd see Debbie Moore coming and going from the house. Jamie would be in the garden, gardening or just pottering about, but that was about it.
In piecing together the couple's movements, police receive some information.
It became apparent to the senior investigating officer that one of the last places that Jamie and Debbie were seen together was on holiday in Scotland in Castle Douglas.
After making that discovery, police actually went out there and started to speak to local people, put posters up and trying to establish their last known whereabouts.
They would have to try and identify where Jamie and Debbie had stayed and interview any staff that were working at that particular time, anybody that could identify them from photographs, and try and make a pattern of their movements at that time and any kind of behavioural telltale signs, whether they were getting along together, whether there were any issues between the two. Just to try and build that profile picture of the last movements that we know that they had together in the UK.
Having done that, unfortunately, it turned up nothing and no one had heard or seen from Debbie Starbuck.
Police now believe it could be over 2 years since anyone has actually seen Debbie. But her family has received emails and postcards from her during that time, something police need to take a closer look at.
The most effective way of doing this is to engage an expert, somebody who is an expert in handwriting and the way that sentences are composed.
Nottinghamshire Police came to us about Debbie Starbuck's emails, which had been sent from her honeymoon back to her family, because the family had raised concerns that it didn't sound like her, that something was wrong.
So emails contain a lot of information that the average user doesn't see plainly or clearly. For example, an email will contain something, potentially the IP address of the computer that you're sending it from or the device you're sending it from, and also you've got the text that's contained within the email.
What we can look at is the word selection and the grammar and the structure within that material to come to some determination of how likely it was that one person rather than another wrote it. So I'd received a lot of materials from the police of Debbie's emails and Jamie's emails, which were undisputedly theirs. We knew that Debbie was the author of her emails and Jamie was the author of his. And then we introduced the queried emails that had been sent from Debbie's account to ask, were they consistent with Debbie's known email style, or were they distinctive from it and more consistent with Jamie's?
And in this case, there was a mismatch.
What we noticed is immediately after the wedding, there was a sharp break in the language style. So the messages from Debbie's account were consistent with Jamie's style and inconsistent with her previous style.
These emails did not come from Debbie Starbuck.
It was no longer a missing person case. The odds were that Debbie had been killed.
At this stage of the investigation, Jamie Starbuck would be a significant person of interest, and the priority would be to locate, trace and interview him. It would be really important to map the movements of Jamie Starbuck from the date he was married. One of those would be when he left the UK, and they would need to generate pretty much a map and pinpoint when and where he was travelling.
So your phone and other devices will tend to log your location. Your phone will constantly be talking to a network, so that's going to sort of give you an idea of where they are in the world or the country and how long they've been there and their movements while they're travelling.
And each of those locations would have attached to it anything of significance. So if you'd used a cell phone, email, written a blog, a financial transaction, anything at all that we know about something he did there, or a piece of equipment that he used, a place he visited, whether it be a hotel, would be a source for another investigation.
Police continue to send emails to Jamie and Debbie's accounts on the pretense of checking they're both okay, hoping that Jamie might trip up.
Jamie must have realised once the police made contact with his email address that something had gone wrong with his plan. Someone somewhere no longer believed that Debbie was with him.
For the investigation team, usually the process is simple. Everybody goes into gear and things ramp up really quickly. In this case, of course, it's more of a slow burner.
With little information forthcoming, the investigation stalls and the months pass.
In January 2013, there was a breakthrough in the case.
I'm sat on a bus, heading for Lima. I'm literally leaving paradise to face my destiny in England. I left the UK a long time ago in search of, well, in all honesty, I was running away from life and responsibility, justice and my past.
He booked a flight from Peru to Heathrow Airport.
Jamie was coming back to the UK, and the senior investigating officer was making sure that there was a team there to welcome him back.
Jamie is arrested as he steps off the plane, but to build a case against him, detectives need to go back to the beginning.
The first thing we knew of Debbie was when I was in the register office. I saw the name displayed on the wall of the marriage of Jamie and Deborah Starbuck. It was such a weird thing because we didn't know he was with anyone, let alone getting married.
She had all cards in the window at the front, like congratulation cards. But yeah, they did look like they was in love, and she was happy because she was smiling and laughing with him, so I think she was enjoying herself.
The newlyweds were keen to share their plans for an extended honeymoon soon after their wedding.
Debbie had inherited £150,000 from her late mother's estate, which meant as they both wished to travel the world, they now had the means to do so.
But as far as I'm concerned, that plan he never intended on sharing with Debbie Starbuck.
Within weeks of their wedding, it seems Jamie had very different plans to those of his wife.
It had been about 5 in the evening. We was on the back garden and we smelt barbecue here, well, we thought was barbecue. And then the next minute we smelt this really horrible smell that we couldn't describe.
The neighbour couldn't see a grill or Jamie at a grill, but what he could see was a garden incinerator. The garden incinerator had flames licking out of it.
There was quilts, there was rugs that we'd seen Jamie put in. It kept going for a couple of hours. I wasn't too sure, I didn't know what to make, so I just thought it was just burning household stuff, getting rid of stuff. But the smell was absolutely just the worst smell I've ever smelled.
At 3 a.m. the fire was still raging, and out of concern the neighbour actually went downstairs and doused the flames, putting the fire in the incinerator out.
It kept going for a couple of hours, then my brother went to put it out with a hose pipe. My brother actually said to me that I bet he's burning his wife, and we was actually having a joke about it.
But it was far from a joke.
The evidence was that having dismembered Debbie's body, he literally barbecued her in his back garden.
Jamie murdered Debbie within weeks of getting married. He dismembered her and burned the body.
I have no doubt at all, that once he discovered that Debbie had inherited £150,000 from her mother's estate, that her future was determined. I'm quite sure he intended to kill her before he married her, and he killed her as soon as he possibly could after he married her.
Sadly, in my career, I've worked with lots of people who've killed a partner, but what surprises me in this case, and what's of real interest to me as a forensic psychologist, is what the killer did next.
Two or 3 days after, I seen Jamie lining up the detergent bottles on the patio, scrubbing down where the bin was, try and get rid of the burn marks, but they didn't do nothing, they were still there. I thought it was a bit weird, but I didn't think anything of it at the time.
They saw Jamie Starbuck filling bin bags with the ash from this incinerator. They then saw him load the bags into the back of his car and drive away.
The way in which Jamie disposed of Debbie's remains is indicative of a practical solution to a problem. He wanted to get away with a crime, so he tried to destroy the evidence. But it also suggests the fact that he was capable of doing that, some level of emotional detachment, which may have been part of Jamie's problems in the first place that contributed to the murder.
2 or 3 days after the fire, my dad was on the front garden at the time. Jamie said to my dad that he was going travelling and meeting his wife wherever she was. Passed my dad the keys to the house. Then when he went, me and my dad went in the house just to make sure it was all locked up. There was nothing suspicious or anything like that to say he'd done anything.
Jamie Starbuck packed his bags, he packed his car, and he went off to Heathrow on a one-way trip to Amsterdam.
As family, we would get postcards saying love from Jamie and Deb, but the first thing we knew about anything was a visit from a detective. He came in to visit us and asked questions about them. I said I didn't have any contact with Jamie and I didn't know he was travelling. I didn't know where he was travelling to, and we kind of jokingly said, is he in trouble or something? We had no idea about what was to happen. It was such a shock.
There had been travel to a number of countries, starting in Amsterdam and then across Europe, into Asia and Southeast Asia, and then over to South America.
As he travelled, he wrote his experience down in minute detail of places that he visited, countries, but also his personal feelings.
I'm back, baby. I've missed blogging. It's been too long. I've now got so many things to write about too. I'll be posting travelling stories, thoughts, queries, and general stuff.
His blog was entitled The Diary of a Misanthrope, which was certainly accurate in relation to his character.
Looking at post-crime behaviour is hugely important because it can tell us so much. That might be about their mindset at the time, how likely they are to surrender voluntarily, for example, but it could also be about risk to others. If someone has done an extreme behaviour like murder, they may pose ongoing risk to other people.
Jamie has been globetrotting for over a year, on the pretext of honeymooning with wife Debbie, signing her name on postcards and emails back to the family in the UK.
So this is an unusual case against others that we've been involved in, because it involved an individual who, over a longer period of time, was messaging from someone's accounts. So in the past we've had text messaging cases where someone has died and the person who's killed them has continued to send messages from their phone for 24, 36 hours, maybe 2 or 3 days, but this went on for a number of months, and that's pretty shocking.
As months pass, Jamie's travels continue. Unaware, police in the UK have been alerted to Debbie's disappearance and are now trying to find him.
I realised this morning I'd still be happy to die tomorrow. 3 months of enlightened living, and I still get sad when I look at the world and try to work out my place in it. Makes me wonder why I bother hanging around. Oh, I know. It's so I can see Machu Picchu, and northern India, and Patra, and the pyramids.
In order to track Jamie down, clearly it would be known where his last travel passport usage would be and in which country he would now be, but that country is vast. So to track him down further, they would need to deploy technical resources. He was blogging and using email on a regular basis, that we know. So in trying to find out his location, it could be done through those means.
Well, I was shown a plan of the world which in different coloured ink showed every place that Starbuck visited, and he had been to every continent in the world, as I recall, because the police were able to trace through the internet every airline ticket he'd bought using Debbie's money, and he had been literally everywhere.
I wonder every day how people get through their lives with the crushing guilt from the shitty way they act to themselves, others, the environment, community, their partners, and life in general. But I remain happy, mostly. I'm happy with me, I'm happy with how I act, and that's what matters. My actions are positive.
This blog post and the wording of it suggests somebody who's trying to come to terms with themselves, trying to find inner peace in some way, yet not acknowledging the devastation that they've left behind.
Alongside his blogs, Jamie is still masquerading as his wife Debbie in messages to family.
Jamie was trying to convince everybody that Debbie was with him. He sent emails to her family, in particular her sister, on the same date that he was sending emails to other people. So their acquaintances as a whole would think that they were together, and that was plainly his objective.
But when police reach out to him via email, it's clear he starts to suspect his secret is out.
Once Jamie realised that the police were investigating Debbie's disappearance, the blog entries seem to change in tone, and the contact he has with others does as well. He contacts people in a more apologetic manner, a more reflective manner.
And they were becoming more and more rambling and sinister and reflective on his life, and I think at that point he knew that the time was up.
I've been on the farm known as Inanita for 5 months, almost to the day, and the time has come to leave. My time is not infinite. Perhaps, if I'd come here 15 years ago, I wouldn't have turned into the angry mess that I did. But I didn't need it then, and I certainly wouldn't have accepted it.
When we read his blog, it's almost like a period of introspection, trying to find himself. He calls himself a misanthrope initially, who's somebody who dislikes other people, yet almost is trying to revise his own character, which is interesting, because he's clearly a psychopath, where he has no regard for anybody else, and he has no moral compass.
By this point, police are now convinced some harm has come to Debbie and head to their last known address.
The police spoke to the neighbours and went to the property, and they found out that around this time, about a month after the wedding, that there were very high flames coming out of a bin incinerator in the garden.
There was quite a lot of police outside, forensics on the back garden, a white tent, and like a big machine that they kept going up and down with to look under the bricks. They did eventually tell us that they think that he killed Debbie, and I was quite shocked about that because I've not heard nothing. Like you'd hear banging or something in the house, you never heard anything. It was really quiet. You didn't hear screaming or nothing from her.
So it's imperative at this time that the police track down Jamie and get him to account for his whereabouts and his actions at the time with the incinerator, and also to reveal and shed light on the whereabouts of Debbie Starbuck.
But by this stage, it seems Jamie is realizing his freedom is coming to an end.
To everyone I've met or talked to the past 3 years, I'm sorry. I lied to you by omission. I was suicidally depressed and without a hope. And then I saw a way out and took it. I went travelling. I absolved myself of all responsibility and ran away. I didn't know I was looking for something at the time. I was looking for me, the me I was happy to be with and to be. I'm ready to come home now. I'll be there in about 5 weeks, give or take, because I'm finally ready to face up to life.
On Jamie's arrival back in the UK, he must have suspected that the police might be waiting for him. After all, he'd had an email from them saying they wanted to speak to him about the whereabouts of Debbie Starbuck. So, when he arrived in the UK and officers arrested him, they asked him the question, "Do you know why we're here?" And his response was, "Yes, it's because of Debs." When the police searched Debbie Starbuck, they found 2 bank cards in Debbie Starbuck's name. Those cards related to an account which had previously had £75,000 in. What they found subsequently was that he'd spent nearly £75,000 of Debbie Starbuck's money, and there was only £6,500 remaining.
But when he was interviewed by the investigating officers, he acknowledged that he was responsible for Debbie's death. He admitted that after he'd killed her, he dismembered her body and burnt it, and he indicated to the police that he felt under an obligation to come back to England to admit what he had done.
Jamie Starbuck gave the investigation team a location of where he had spread Debbie Starbuck's ashes.
I was informed that Debbie's background was one of Orthodox Jewry, and I knew that cremation for an Orthodox Jew is simply not regarded as appropriate. I don't think for one moment that Jamie had that in mind. He burned her body just to get rid of the evidence. It was a grotesque thing to do, and stripped her of all dignity, even in death.
Jamie Starbuck has been arrested and charged with the murder of his wife, Debbie. Having told the police he'd burned her body and scattered her remains nearby, a search team is dispatched.
The police, I know they used what's called a corpse dog to try and find Debbie's remains.
Unfortunately, nothing was discovered.
The search for Debbie's remains is called off, and Jamie makes his first appearance in court.
As I understand it, he didn't indicate any plea when he was before the magistrate's court.
So, a case is built for trial.
Every case is prepared as though it was a not guilty plea. The evidence available in this case is largely circumstantial. There is no body, there is no victim that is apparent, and the problem that the prosecution have is, albeit they've got a confession, and there is lots and lots of evidence available around bank transfers, financial transactions, there is no physical evidence of the act that's been committed.
Police and prosecutors need to prove their case against Jamie. So, look at the evidence from when it all began.
Digital forensics is huge, especially in murder cases, but now every type of case. It is everywhere and people don't realise that it's everywhere and how much information is stored about them on devices that they use every day. So if you buy a ticket, it's going to leave a record on your computer or your phone, depending on how you choose to buy it. It's also going to come out of your bank account. You have to pay for them somehow. So looking at financial records, matching that up, sort of building the puzzle with activity on computers and phones, you can build up a puzzle of what tickets were bought when, to where, for who. And in this case, he was only buying one-way tickets for one person.
It may seem surprising that someone can go and travel the world and seemingly have a great time when they've done something so horrific back in the UK. However, some people are really good at problem avoidance. It's part of who they are. They avoid thinking about that problem. They avoid any emotions associated with that problem.
Police also re-examine emails supposedly sent from Debbie to her family to validate their theory that Jamie was sending them.
So in this case, there was a difference in the semicolon use between Debbie Starbuck and Jamie Starbuck. There was a difference in the way they signed off their emails. So they used different arrangements of line breaks. So Jamie used a double line space between his end of his email and his sign off, and Debbie only a single line break. And also one striking difference was the actual sign off. Debbie always signed herself off Debbie, but in the way that Jamie referred to her in his emails, which were known to be by him, was Deb, and in the emails later in the sequence, the sign-off shifted to be Deb.
And further digging soon uncovers another key piece of evidence.
The police found an unsent message in Jamie Starbuck's outbox, which was quite chilling.
Even if you delete a note, the chances are that the database might not have updated itself, so it stores it in almost a temporary file next to the notes database. If that hasn't been committed to the database, then you can potentially still recover that deleted data, which can be quite useful, especially in cases like this where something's been written and then subsequently deleted.
Jamie had written on his iPad, "I planned it to be quick. I never thought you'd be so durable."
The message in Jamie Starbuck's outbox was quite clear, that he'd always planned for it to be a quick death, but it wasn't. It was quite a painful, excruciating death for Debbie Starbuck, and it shows to me that it was premeditated, that it was planned.
I was the resident judge in Nottingham, which meant that all murder cases came to me in the first place. Well, when I first read the summary of this particular case, it was extraordinary and bizarre. It was more like a work of fiction than something that had happened to somebody in real life. Absolutely bizarre.
On the day of the court hearing, he was clean shaven, smartly dressed, very short spiky hair, pale. You'd expect him to have an amazing, long-lasting suntan from his adventures around the world and perhaps put a bit of weight on from all those wonderful trips that he had, but no.
He seemed perfectly normal when he came into the dock. He looked like anyone else, perfectly normal, but most murderers do. They don't look different from other people. You could walk past them in the street and you wouldn't know. And he looked perfectly ordinary. When the indictment was put to him, he pleaded guilty. He wasn't even represented at that point by a QC, but he pleaded guilty anyway. And he then asked to be dealt with.
He pleaded guilty, I believe, because of the weight of evidence. He always knew that he would be found guilty. He always knew that he would be brought to justice. prior to his return to the UK, he must have known that the evidence available was insurmountable.
Because he pleaded guilty, I was obliged to give him some discount. And so I thought the 30-year starting point was appropriate, and the minimum term he must serve before he can apply for parole is 30 years, so he'll be well into his 60s when he can apply for parole. He made no eye contact with me, as I recall. He simply listened to my sentencing remarks. He listened to his minimum term. I then said, take him down, and he walked downstairs without any sign of anything. He must have been expecting that he would receive a very long minimum term. His counsel would have warned him in advance.
Having not taken to the stand, no one is any the wiser as to why Jamie committed this atrocious act.
It's quite possible that the motive for this crime was money related. Financial motivation is huge. It's a motivator for many crimes, and it could have been that that was the plan from the outset.
I think the overriding feeling I get from this case is how callous an individual Jamie Starbuck was. It was calculated, pre-planned. He had absolutely no feeling for Debbie Starbuck, no remorse, expressed no remorse as far as I can see for actually killing her, and travelled the world, spending all her money freely, trying to find himself, enjoying himself, living life to the fullest.
I'm closing down this blog as of now. I'm changing the password to something I'll never remember and leaving it behind. 3 years ago, I was in a bad way, to say the least. I was consumed by anger and fear. Anger at past injustices, fear at the future, and controlled by a need to be loved. And then I saw a way out and took it. I went travelling. I absolved myself of all responsibility and ran away. I didn't know I was looking for something at the time. I was looking for me, the me I was happy with and to be.
12 years on, and Jamie has never revealed why he killed his wife or where he disposed of her remains.
I think with this story, it's about a true romance that a lot of people can identify with. And it's your dream come true, particularly if you've been looking for love for a long time, to meet somebody online who fits everything that you've been looking for in a man. And with this particular couple, I got the impression that that was the love story, and then that all turns into a nightmare.
After the trial, Debbie's sister released a heartfelt statement.
We are heartbroken to lose our beautiful sister and cherished daughter. We are still finding it difficult to believe what has happened, and we don't think that we will ever be able to come to terms with it. Deb was bright, adventurous, and full of life. She was kind, loving, and loyal, and had so many friends who loved her. She was the sort of person who would always go to great lengths to be there when you needed her. She was always interested in learning new things and meeting new people. Sadly, this led her to meet Jamie Starbuck, who took all that away from her.